Salams and welcome to part number 10 of the Maulana Ansari series, where we look at who is the man Maulana Ansari. And once you understand who is Maulana Ansari, then inshallah we can look into some of his wonderful lectures that he delivered in South Africa. So we're looking at the moment, and please remember to get copies from Ahsan Academy of Research and from Shelvcraft, and you'll find the details in the description below. All right, so let's continue with this. It must be noted that the period under review, which is 1937 to 1938 in Singapore, nurtured Maulana Ansari's academic profile, and he became an outstanding scholar who could debate with other people both orally and in the written way, but in a most polite and humble way, without argument, without condemning another person, and that is why he was loved even by his enemies as well. So, as we said, when the editor of the newspaper wrote, "Go to mosque or go to prison," Maulana Ansari then wrote a rebuttal to that article. He wrote a forceful reply in the Straits Times to refute the arguments of all the opponents of the bill. The editor was basically opposed to Islam and Islamophobic, who hated Islam, who hated Maulana Ansari. By the time he read the polite but very logical and rational answer of Maulana Ansari, this is what the editor had to say. And that is what the Quran also says: if you are polite with people, your enemy can become your friend. Right? So let's see how this happened. The editor, who was instrumental in writing a scathing editorial, was deeply impressed by Maulana Ansari's rational exposition that he wrote another editorial, seemingly an apology. So when he saw that, you know what, I perhaps made a mistake, so then he wrote another editorial. His tacit endorsement of Maulana Ansari's academic credentials was couched in persuasive language, and that's what the editor had to write. He said that subtle and learned logician, very difficult word, logician, right? It must be noted that the period under review from 1937 to 1938 nurtured Maulana Ansari's academic profile, a scholar with a profound and deep understanding of the challenges facing the Muslim community. He was an alim who framed and developed educational programs compatible to the aspirations of the Muslims, and a muballigh who complemented pragmatism and Islam's destiny with progressive orthodoxy. In retrospect, Maulana Ansari symbolized Islam's unique role as a dawah-based deen capable of responding to modern-day challenges, whether the challenges were in 1960s and 70s, or whether the challenges are today in 2024, or the challenges are in another 100 years' time, or even in the next millennium in the year 3000, right? Likewise, the lecture tours by Maulana Ansari in South Africa in 1970 and 1972 were a watershed in the history of South African Muslims. And as what I mentioned, I was so fortunate. I was 12 years old when I attended his lectures in 1972 at the Jewel Street Mosque in Pretoria in South Africa. His lectures left an indelible impression on South African Muslims by articulating an Islamic worldview for the new generation of modern educated Muslims. May Allah wanted to reward all of them. You know, we were youngsters at that stage, but there were people in our community, whether it was the Kalas opposite the Jewel Street Mosque or the Ayyub family and various other families who got together, whether it was the Muslim youth movement, and I can't remember all the details, but they used to import, or they used to get overseas lecturers to South Africa. Remember, we were living during apartheid. We were oppressed community. We were victims in this country. We did not have rights. But one of the things that we had, because we were put in Bantu stance, at least it kept our community together, and there was religious freedom. So we had our own mosque, and we could call overseas guest speakers. And in this way here, our own Muslims sponsored these guest speakers. They took them to their homes and they shared their knowledge. Then they used to take them from Pretoria to Johannesburg to Durban to Cape Town and various other ways. And that is why a new generation of people were motivated and inspired to say, these are the challenges facing the Muslim Ummah. What do we do? How do we resolve it? How do we embrace it? How do we deal with it? In a very logical and a scientific way, in a very academic and intellectual way, which appeals to people who are students. It appeals to students. It appeals to intellectuals. It appeals to the academics. It also appeals to the ordinary man and woman. That is the beauty of these series of lectures. So these series of lectures are as valid in the 70s as they are valid today, as they will be valid in 100 years' time. Why? Because he is basically talking about Islam, and Islam is a universal language. Islam is a universal religion beyond time and space. The values are universal. The challenges are the same. Islamophobia is the same. In fact, it's worse now compared to what it was before. But alhamdulillah, we don't condemn other people. All that we do, we say, this is Islam, this is the beauty of Islam, and people get a shock. People get an absolute shock. They say, we never knew this was Islam. And that is all our job. Part of the job of Tabligh, you just share the knowledge. The rest of it, you leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? There is no compulsion in religion. That's a very firm rule. That's an absolute rule. And anyone who says that Islam was spread by the sword, they must go back to the history school, they must go back to kindergarten school, because they have absolutely no knowledge about Islam, right? So let's look at some of the academic honors of Maulana Fazlur Rahman Ansari. In 1939, Maulana Ansari was selected as fellow of the Alexander von Humboldt Stiftung of Berlin, and was to proceed to Germany. I don't know if I can put that on the side. And was to proceed to Germany to pursue his postgraduate studies. However, with the outbreak of the Second World War in 1939, travel facilities to Germany were equally hazardous and disruptive. Thus, he had to abandon his ambitious plans. He resumed his studies in Bachelor of Theology and graduated in 1941. Once again, what was his marks? First class pass. So he got his A's, his distinctions, and he came out at the top of his class. So anyone who comes at the top of their class, I've got a lot of respect for them, because to study at a university is not an easy thing. Because remember, there's a big difference between studying, and this I'm speaking to our young Gen Z children, our Gen Z, our youth, and those who are going to school. There's a very big difference between school and university. The biggest challenge you will face in school, the teacher will say, hey, where is John? Or where is Mary? Why didn't Mary and John come to school today? Right? Or where is Impopo? Why didn't they come? Or Jabulani, where's Jabu? Why didn't he come to school today? Jabu must come running to school, or John must come running to school. Everyone is checking up on you. But at university, nobody checks up on you. They don't care. You come first day to school or university, the professor will talk. He will walk away. He doesn't care if you came for the lecture or you didn't come for the lecture. He doesn't care whether you failed the exams or you passed the exam. He gets his salary. He says you are now an adult and must be on your own. You know what's the problem then? Why people find it very difficult from school to university. When they come to university, they find so much freedom. He say, hey, no one cares whether we went for lectures. Look at the swimming pool, look at the tennis courts, look at the canteen. There's so much fun. Before you know it, you start in January, before you know it is the April exams. And now you wonder, I didn't even study for my exams. Before you know it is the June exams and you fail. Half the class drops out by the June exams. So, major challenge about university, it teaches you responsibility. It teaches that you must be your own teacher. You must discipline yourself. It teaches you discipline, because if you're not going to study, their teacher doesn't care about you. Their teacher is not going to say, hey, Mr. Smith, why didn't you come to lectures today? They don't care. So again, the only ones who cares when you become a doctor, when you're doing your locum, when you got your internship, when you're a junior doctor, and if you don't come for call in casualty, then you got problems, because now the patients are going to suffer. That's the only time people will phone to find out where are you, right? But other than that, no one cares where you are. So again, the period 1941 to 1942 marked a milestone in his intellectual career and pointed out to his remarkable versatility. He took up the MA course in philosophy and graduated in 1942. His major subjects included metaphysics, ethics, psychology, and Islamic philosophy, for which he was required to study the original sources in both Arabic and Persian. The pioneering study in Muslim philosophy, entitled History of Muslim Philosophy, examines the growth and development of this discipline and its close association with the sciences, humanities, and the arts. Thus, a comprehensive study of philosophy in relation to other disciplines entailed a scientific and rigorous approach combined with an extensive examination of Western sources. At the AMU, with its enviable record of producing the best minds in these disciplines, Maulana Ansari could not have found a suitable place to pursue his long-cherished ambitions. As the president of the Philosophical Society of AMU, he made important contributions as well. His devotion to learning went beyond the formal curriculum program. On his own, he studied an additional MA course in subjects as diverse as politics, economics, law, comparative religion, and the history of civilization and culture. And because of his vast knowledge, he could talk to people at different levels. He could talk to the ordinary man and woman. He could talk to doctors. He could talk to lawyers. He could talk to scientists. He could talk to economic professors. So he was very versatile because of the background knowledge that he had. The world-renowned philosopher Sayyid Zafar al-Hasan became his supervisor for his doctorate, which he commenced in 1942. Maulana Ansari's topic, which is the Islamic moral and metaphysical philosophy, was intended to make groundbreaking research in this field. For 5 years, the research was conducted in an extensive manner. Even before the completion of Maulana Ansari's doctoral thesis, Sayyid Zafar al-Hasan had recorded his impressions in 1945, and I quote, Hafiz Fazlur Rahman M.A. B.Th. Aligarh has now been known to me intimately for 12 years. He is recognized by his teachers and his fellow students as an exceptional student, head and shoulders above others, always securing a first class, standing first and often enough scoring record marks. For some time, he has now been working with me on a philosophical religious theme for his doctorate, which I am sure is going to be a great dissertation. Hafiz Fazlur Rahman is a very capable man and has had a vast experience of the world. Already he has published a number of books and pamphlets and articles on Islam and Islamic topics which have been greatly appreciated. He is one of the very few really promising young scholars that I know of. In habits and manners, Hafiz Fazlur Rahman Ansari is a perfect gentleman who combines in his person true Islamic cultural and Occidental Western learning, and I'm sure he will, wherever he goes, add luster to his own self, to his teachers and his great alma mater, the Aligarh Muslim University. And we'll end today's program with that end of that quotation. We'll start with the next video. That was the video number 10, and we'll do the next one, which is video number 11. So please remember, this is in the Ansari series of lectures, and we are busy with number 10. Please join me for number 11. So once you understand who is Maulana Fazlur Rahman Ansari, we'll then go into great depth into his specific lectures that he delivered in Pretoria, in Johannesburg, in Durban, and in Cape Town, South Africa, and other places in the world. I don't know where else the various scholars have gathered all this information, but I would love to share that information with you. And please share that information with your children and grandchildren, and let's inspire and awaken the new generation of youth, because there's so much distractions in the world today. There's social media distraction, but it's also opportunities. And let's use our opportunity. The very fact that I'm talking to you is because of social media. So we make shukr for social media, but we stay away from the harm of it, and we embrace the good that is in it. Stay well, look after yourself. Alhamdulillah.